Dr. Nirmaljeet Singh Khalsi, Dr. Anil Wali, Dr. Varinder Garg, Dr. Sarath K. Das, as our esteemed speakers today. We had with us Dr. Satish K. Reddy as well, who is unfortunately not present in person with us on this seminar today because he's down with flu and probably a suspected case of COVID. But we will, in his absence, still carry on with our session today. Welcome everyone and all our other guests. Disruptive innovations. Disruptive innovations create a new market by disrupting an existing market, displacing established market leaders and alliances. These innovations have proved to be a powerful way of thinking about innovation-driven growth. Technology continues to change our lives in subtle ways. Today, a large number of devices, sensors, cloud infrastructure, data and business intelligence tools are already in use, especially in the healthcare segment. It has now been postulated that the future doctor-patient interaction and diagnosis will occur anytime and anywhere. AI, robotics, nanomaterials, IoT, which is the Internet of Things, in healthcare are transforming the world. This poses some pertinent questions to us that we will try and find answers through our discussions in this session. We will know how disruptive technologies must be matched with innovative business models. What models, antecedents, and economic and social and organizational consequences do they have? What is the role of IoT in healthcare? And what is a digital future that lies ahead of us now, accelerated by the ongoing pandemic caused by COVID-19? So let's begin our session today by formal introduction of our esteemed guests and speakers here today. We have with us Dr. Anil Wali, the Managing Director, Foundation for Innovation and Technology Transfer, IIT Delhi. Dr. Anil Wali works at the interface of business and research, an IIT Delhi doctorate having years of experience in specialty chemicals and clean processes. He has been the Managing Director at the Foundation for Innovation and Technology Transfer since 2006. Besides looking at issues of concern to SMEs, he's overseeing technology transfer, enabling partnerships, and driving innovations and incubation in the academia. He has several patents and publications to his credit. Dr. Wali is part of several committees addressing issues of education, industry-academia relationship, IP management, and entrepreneurship development. Welcome, sir. We then have Dr. Nirmaljeet Singh Khalsi, former Additional Chief Secretary, Punjab. Dr. Khalsi is a member of Indian Administrative Services, 1984 batch, Punjab cadre. He was superannuated in June 2019 as Additional CS, Home Affairs and Justice, Government of Punjab, after 39 years of unblemished public service. Currently serving as Chairman, State Police Complaints Authority, Punjab, and a board member and board of governors of various institutes, working closely with universities, engineering institutions, educational institutions, and principals for the upliftment of Indian education system. Welcome, sir. Our presiding speaker here today, in absence of Dr. Satish K. Reddy, will be Dr. Varinder Garg, Principal Investigator of CIBioD. Welcome, sir. I now move the session forward by welcoming Dr. Anil Wali for his views on our session today. So,
thank you, Mrinal. Thanks, and very happy to be amongst a very distinguished gathering here. Professor Das is a good colleague from the IIT system. I hope you can all hear me. And Dr. Nirmaljeet Singh, we just only recently got connected on LinkedIn. So happy to be here. So let me start by, of course, I will not take much time because I have to attend to a board meeting of mine. But nonetheless, I'll be speaking for a few minutes. If I can be allowed to share my screen, I think Mrinal, can I be asked? I mean, it's your end. The control is at your end.
Um, can we have the assistant Sakshi for screen sharing here? I think. If you go to your share screen, the green button.
I got it. Now now you have opened it.
Yeah, yeah.
Start. Is it visible?
Yes, it is. If you can just maximize the screen, you can use F5.
Yeah, done that.
Yes, I think that that's fine.
Oh, thanks. Let me just keep track of the timing. So, well, thanks again for inviting me, and I feel honored to have been given this opportunity to share our thoughts. In your introduction, of course, you have mentioned about the various technologies which are actually impacting the innovation space in the medtech area. So I will not actually get into all that, but maybe give some thoughts with regard to where we should be moving, particularly, and also give some live examples of how things are, at least the innovation space is impacted all around the world. Now, the title itself is about innovation and entrepreneurship, and I think the word that was used by DSIR some years ago was techno-entrepreneurship. That is actually innovation-driven entrepreneurship. As a matter of fact, this is a title, a part also of my question, which I always ask many of the management students or other innovations students, and many a times I fail to get an answer. Nonetheless, I'm not here to tell exactly what it means. But I think there's no denying the fact that if there is something which is actually impacting all of us and is something which is driving all of us is the creativity, which is breaking the conventional mental blocks. And when I say mental block, means all of us, and no matter which profession we are in, no matter which kind of jobs we are doing in, no matter what kind of industries we are working in. I think so. It's actually helping us break those blocks, and then if we start playing with imagination and possibilities, then the whole world is before us, and we are in then position to unlock the various opportunities that are there before us. Uh, so about year and maybe 2.5 years ago, I was delivering a lecture. I think it was sponsored by Hillman Laboratories, which is in medical space at Jamia Hamdard University. That was more than 2.5 years ago. There in one of the slides, I just reproducing that slide over here. So I had actually mentioned few vaccine development startups there. Now, as you can just see it, right on the top was Moderna Therapeutics, which at that point in time had raised a funding of 1.7 billion. Now, in the market space, we essentially talk about the kind of investments a company has raised. That actually is an idea, that is a index of the kind of trust, let's say, the market is putting in that particular company, or the value that market is ascribing to that particular startup. And now, why I talk about Moderna, it's at the forefront of producing the vaccine against COVID-19. And so that was the only point I would, and who would have imagined in, let's say, July of 2017, that something like COVID-19 pandemic is going to impact or affect us so very badly. But nonetheless, if you look at the way they're working, the platform they're working is actually making a huge difference today. So no matter where you are, which space you are in, it depends how you have looked at future, the possibilities or the kind of issues that might crop up later. So you are envisioning that kind of a scenario much in advance, are actually creating platforms to have innovations to address those challenges, like what Moderna is doing today. Anyway, this is a slide which I always like to show, in no matter which. The only reason I show this is to buttress the point of partnerships and the market forces. Now, it was in 1972 that Professor Berg talked about, or a student worked on recombinant DNA. But it was not till Robert Swanson, a young venture capitalist, and you hardly get those kind of VCs today. I mean, who asked, I will not get into the details, but Professor Herbert Boyer at University of California and Professor S. Cohen of University of Stanford, they actually took this work forward. And it was here that when Robert Swanson actually asked them whether they can produce marketable protein therapeutic products. And that was year 1976. But nonetheless, to cut the long story short, he just pursued them. Well, it was a great passionate pursuit. And anyway, what happened? A startup called Genentech was born in 1976 by Boyer and Swanson together. And then, of course, there was a lot of partnerships, failed relationships, etc., etc. But no matter what, in 16 months, they were able to express somatostatin, protein, hormone, and bacteria. And in 1978, this team produced human insulin from synthesized gene. Just imagine, this is the story of basic science, okay? Now, which actually created from a purely academic environment and turned into phenomenal global success. And in fact, I always say that the foundation of modern day biochemistry or biotechnology was laid by Genentech. And it's a different matter that some years later, it was acquired by a large Swiss pharma major called Roche at a fabulous valuation. I don't know whether you can imagine that. I always say it was more than 46 billion US dollars. So that was the kind of valuation that was ascribed to a startup, which actually came up with the world-beating or world-class product. It was just not a product, it was actually a platform. And today, when we talk of recombinant DNA, it's a platform which is actually impacting a lot of research and innovations in the medtech space. Well, these are some of the, now, like Professor Das, I also, represent academia in some way. So I always have to put the good things of academia in front of everybody. So I'm just giving you a minuscule, a very few examples. I'm just repeating, it's few examples of university contributions. Now, if you see right from Taxol to now, if University of Oxford's vaccine, that's what we are going to have it in India, the Serum Institute is going big on the AstraZeneca vaccine, which is nothing but taken forward from the University of Oxford's work. And then, of course, you have university contributions in antiretrovirals. I'm not just going into the names. And before COVID-19, I have just put Pregbalene. Now, Pregbalene is a molecule I think the doctors would know is actually the API of the Pfizer's drug for used in the neuro conditions. And this particular drug actually, drug was actually able to actually turn the fortunes of Northwestern University, particularly in terms of resource mobilization. You would know that in the US, so many of these universities also are raising huge resources for the R&D and of course building huge endowments. So this was the one such invention at Northwestern University, which actually helped them and also helped Pfizer rocket up sales of more than $7 billion US dollars after some years. Well, when we talk of the present day situation, and then particularly in terms of the innovation space in India, so what I mean, it's no brainers when we say that India is going to become the world's most populous country in a few years from now. But what is more important and sometimes more frightening is a growing diseases burden. And I don't have to tell an audience of doctors what I'm actually talking about. But well, aside of the huge challenges that are confronting us as a country, we as academicians see in it as opportunities. There's a huge opportunity landscape, whether it's in infrastructure building, whether it's about building partnerships, medtech innovations, investments, I talked about it, and the startups. Now that is something which is actually going to drive much of the innovation space in the country. And when I say startups, I'm referring both to the innovation is also the entrepreneurship space. And as I had mentioned, the proof of the pudding lies, or you can say what actually gives an indication of the market confidence in startups. For example, I gave in the second slide, I gave examples from the US. In Europe, for example, between January and September 2019, we saw that there was about 3.6 billion was invested in health tech firms only. And it's a health tech, mostly startup firms. So that actually that gives you an indication of the kind of money, the kind of confidence, or the kind of trust that market puts on these startup companies, because they're the ones who are actually driving much of the innovation space, including the disruptions. Now, since I still am enamored by the academia, I just want to give examples of an academic. Maybe Professor Sarit Das would know that. I, in fact, would want to ask a question to all the members, or of course, you can't answer to me if you're on a digital platform. So there's some guy called Edison of the biological world. I don't know how many of you can actually guess who this person is. But anyway, let me just tell you, he is a biotechnologist, engineer, scientist, inventor, and entrepreneur. Rather, I mean, is a polymath of all the kinds. More than 1,000 patents to his credit, more than 1,300 scientific articles, more than 170,000 citations, which would make any academic proud. But, well, that is not important. Well, those are good numbers, though. But what is important is 2 billion lives impacted by technologies from his laboratories. This is the thing which I had wanted to delve into all of the members out here. This gentleman patent licensed to sub-licensed to more than 250 companies, and he himself was a founder of 24 startups. Now, this is where the hard-bred, hard-nosed academic should think that it's not just about academics alone, but at some stage, a part of your work as actually to see light of the day and be in a position to impact the society. So that's what we are largely talking about in the country, and in so many words in different lingos, it's been mentioned right from the very top. Now, this gentleman is nobody but Professor Robert Langer of MIT. So you can Google it and find out, and you will see. I mean, of course, this is a little dated slide, and of course, the numbers might have increased much more than that. Now, let me give you a specific instance of research translation, which happened again in a UK university. Now, this is something I'm talking about, let's say, intervention in the MIS space, that is minimally invasive surgery. So this is about the commercial translation of intra-abdominal platform surgical system. So we all know of the laparoscopic methods models. So here it is that there are I mean, what I'm trying to address here is the kind of challenges revolutionary MIS was revolutionary though, but it presented a lot of challenges in clinical practice, as surgeons' hands are always and they're replaced by laparoscopic instruments. The dexterity of the surgeon gets limited, as is the visualization and navigation. Therefore, a key part of any operation is to ensure adequate exposure to operating field by repositioning and retracting the surrounding tissues. So this is a challenge which, of course, now the dexterous hands, the experienced hands are in a position to see through what is there inside the tissues. In fact, a laparoscopic surgeon, a friend of mine, he says that I think they have achieved so much of experience in that even with closing their eyes, they know what they are doing. So, well, that comes with experience, but I don't know, to err is human, errors can still happen. So it was, a constant dialogue between colorectal surgeons and engineers at University of Leeds that actually helped them create this intra-abdominal platform. So I don't want to get into the details, but actually, these, of course, what it shows the Gartner hypercycle, how this technology was entirely developed. I think one can refer to, I'm giving the example, I'm giving the reference. People can go to and see the references, also the patterns, and see how difficult it is, or rather how challenging it is to actually come up with the radical innovations. So when we talk of innovation, it's not just a plain speaking. No, there's a lot of research, a lot of work which goes behind it. There's a large teamwork which goes into it. And that's what has to be appreciated. Now, let me take, now in my lectures on entrepreneurship and innovation, I always, many a times often say that while technology is important, but many a times, many disruptions happen not because of technology, but because of application of technology or because of the business models, the unique business models. So there's so many examples before you. I don't want to get into that. But we in India also had one of our doctors at Aravind, that Dr. Govindam Venkataswamy. So I don't have to tell, this has actually become part of folklore, and many of the doctors here would know how it actually has impacted ophthalmological care in India. And then it is, of course, a case study in virtually every lecture and every book about Aravind Eye Hospital. I'll not get into it more than, but let me give an example from our own institute, IIT Delhi. So I will not talk about the missile technologies or other technologies where we are impacting the radars, which is anyway happening. But when it comes to, let's say, devices, I want to share with you a very simple device that was developed at IIT Delhi. Now here again, it is a matter of pride for us to say that it was a unique partnership between the stakeholders. When we talk of stakeholder approach to entrepreneurship or for innovation, the results are extremely gratifying. For example, the smart cane. You might ask me, what is there in smart cane? It's been there for decades. Well, the usual smart cane that people are familiar with as the one where you're tackling obstacles on ground. But here we are talking of above ground obstacles, particularly above knee obstacles. So here it was IIT Delhi which provided the research and strategic leadership in the design and development of this product. Saksham Trust was the one which provided the interface with the users, that is the visually challenged people. And Phoenix Medical Systems down south in Chennai was the one which contributed in design and manufacturing, but nothing works without money. And here we have to acknowledge the liberal grants that we got from the Wellcome Trust. Well, I think we together worked together and created the Smart Cane. And we didn't just stop there, not just stopped at manufacturing or making it. Today, it is selling like anything. And I can just give you some indication of the number or the volumes that it is generating, because it's only costing about 3,000 rupees per stick. And in the last 5 years, IIT Delhi has got more than 1 crore in royalties. So for a socially relevant innovation to get that kind of royalties on a product which is just costing 3,000 speaks about the volumes that we are selling across platforms. Not just that, it also figures in one of the museums in the UK. So that's I want to tell you about how sometimes in small things can make a difference in the lives of the disadvantaged. Another peculiarity about the innovation spaces, it's not about just working in esoteric spaces. Sometimes you have to respond to the challenges of whether it's the current challenges or long-run issues that you have to address. Now, we all have been grappling with the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. Just imagine, I don't know how many people or how many of us can go back to March or April when we actually had very few PPEs in the country today. And what did we do? What did our startups do? What did our faculty do? Well, there was lockdown all around, but not with many of our faculty members and our startups who took the challenge. And here I'm just giving you some products which we launched in the marketplace, not just developed in our shelves, developed it and put it in the marketplace. Now, that is, symbolic of ATMANIRBHAR BHARAT, not just symbolic, but actually we did make them in-house, design them, and with great difficulty when everything was shut. Our people, our enterprising startups went out and got these things done. And some of these have actually created a niche for themselves. So whether it was the icing on the cake is the pro-free RT-PCR COVID-19 assay, which of course they came up with. It was all validated, tested, and doing pretty well compared to the other PCR tests that are there in the marketplace. Same with PPEs and nasal masks and cleaners. I mean, you just name. I mean, I'm just giving you a few examples of the products that were created and launched in the marketplace. Herein I can just tell you about one particular product, which is Kavach mask, which some of these masks have become brands by themselves and are logging huge numbers on the e-commerce websites like Amazon and Flipkart. They are the ones which are actually given a huge leg up to other startups to work on solutions to address the pandemic issues. Well, I think these are some things which, of course, you have to address given the challenges in the environment. And to close is one that we have to look at actually creating an ecosystem, an innovation ecosystem. And when we talk of innovation ecosystem, I mean, these are, what I'm talking about when we talk of policy frameworks, incentives, tech transfer models, programs, incubators, makers, that's all important. But to be in a position or to actually create the right kind of environment, to be in a position to easily come up with not just radical innovations, but innovations to even meet short-term goals, short-term objectives. You need a very vibrant ecosystem. And when we talk of innovation ecosystem, it is incomplete without talking about research, without talking about translation. So if you have a good research platforms, if you have translation mechanisms, methods available, then innovation is a very logical and effective outcome of that particular ecosystem. And this is a very important, the innovation imperative, because this actually is such that we have to create a culture of innovation at our institutions, which will not only help us leverage our strengths to meet the national challenges, and also to address even, enable an environment that actually fosters the partnerships that I have been talking about since the beginning, which actually helps us come up with great innovations of global impact. And the doctors amongst you would know that we have had many doctors, both in India and abroad, who have actually impacted. So it's not just Devi Shetty's and Pradhav Reddy's in India, but if you talk of the major ones, that Dr. Patrick Shun Shiong, I mean, the kind of companies that they have created or have been involved with. Dr. Homer Stryker of the Stryker Corporation, everybody perhaps knows about Stryker Corporation. Dr. Philip Frost, I mean, the Philip Frost, if this guy was in India, I'm sure he would have never made it to any of the medical colleges. I mean, he was in French linguistics, a graduate in French linguistics, and then took up medicine. I mean, the kind of guys, the kind of liberalization that is there in the education system has to be admired, has to, I think somewhere the liberal education, when we talk of, I think Professor Haridas knows it, that we also have to do much more on that part of the education platform, because it's the youngsters who actually would be in a position, or who would be, aside of the practitioners, the students who would be driving much of the innovation space. I mean, you look up the internet, you will see hundreds of very promising startups, no matter which area you will find them, even if it's area of medtech. I'm just giving you a few names. If you want to just Google them, you will see the kind of technical challenges these startups are trying to address. And it's only if there's a huge amount of interest amongst all of us, amongst practitioners, then I'm sure our lives are going to be much better than where we are today. So I think I'll close by saying that we, IIT Delhi, like other IITs, when being older IIT Delhi being one of the older IITs, you can say that we take these things quite seriously, and we are not just talking about it, but also doing a lot on this. And that actually gets reflected in the kind of impact we create in the society. I'm just giving you a list of startups who actually made it big in the world of business. And many of these are unicorns. Now, whether on the left-hand side are the ones which are in the tech space, and on the right side are the companies you're very familiar with. Some of them are in the e-commerce or pure business place. I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I'll have to now leave because I think I'm very close to about a minute before I have to go to another meeting. So if there's any quick question, I'll be able to take it, but otherwise maybe sometime later I'll be in a better position to engage with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Wali, for your enlightening session and remarks on this topic. I'm sure you're in a hurry, so we'll probably, if anyone has questions, they can put up in the chat, or just feel free to
they can mail it to me, and I'll be more than happy to answer that.
So I think, yes, we can definitely mail you and be in touch with you over long-term associations for, the future technologies which would be disruptive in then.
Yes, right. I think I'll have to leave, and I think my apologies to Dr. Sarit, Dr. Nirmaljeet, because I'll be missing their talks. In fact, Dr. Sarit Das is a wonderful speaker, so I'm sure he'll make up for wherever I missed out.
No, thank you. Thank you,
Dr. Raja, Ramchandran, and thanks everybody. Thanks again.
May I now welcome Dr. Nirmaljeet Singh Khalsi for his presentation.
Can you please enable my screen sharing? Yes.
Have you got it, sir?
Yes, I got it. Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can. If you can just, I think. Yeah, that will be fine.
Dr. Anil Wali, Dr. Sarit K. Das, Dr. Varinder Garg, Ms. Mrinal Tayal, other dignitaries, and very dear delegates. we are discussing digital health technology innovations, and I'm going to present the Vision 2025. You have heard the past and the present from Dr. Anil Wali, very beautifully presented. And I'm going to concentrate only on the future. Uh, as per the World Economic Forum report, they have listed 31 risks in next 18 months post-COVID world. Some of them are economic, societal, geopolitical, technological, and environmental. And healthcare and wellness sector is especially part of most of these risks. So that is my first point. Now, there are mega trends which are emerging in healthcare and wellness sector. And this Frost and Sullivan report, it tells it beautifully. Between 2020 and 2030, there is going to be, as digital health begins to mature, new business models will be expanding. So evolving human body, capabilities of the future, there is always an urge in a human being to improve himself. So enhanced intelligence, enhanced sensing, then disease-free body, sports optimization, digital hardware enhancement, then enhanced strength, increased attractiveness, extreme aging, optimized diet, where digital biometrics, then enhanced ubiquitous and increased attractiveness, monitoring, extreme aging, these are extremely optimized diet, and where digital biometrics, then enhanced ubiquitous and increased artificial intelligence for health extreme aging, these are IT application market. It has a projected growth of more than 68%. Now that's a huge number. And there will be approximately 4 million people with sight loss by 2050. And there are solutions available in the new technologies. Also, there has been a shift towards preventive and holistic wellness. Rather than just curative health, now people are trying to focus on prevention and holistic wellness. And when I talk about holistic wellness, now there are important factors like physical wellness, emotional wellness, intellectual, financial, spiritual, social, environmental, and occupational. And all these styles of wellness, this holistic wellness, is available in the Indian traditional lifestyle and our own healthcare systems. So we need to put in a lot of effort in promoting Ayurvedic healthcare and go for innovation and research in that area by creating the evidence which is required by the Western world. Now, healthcare spending and digital data revolution in next these 20, 30 years, rather 10 years, is a huge number. Now, if you look at the global figure by 2025, the health spending is going to be equivalent to today's economy, today's GDP of India. So that's a huge number. Now, also, there is a huge digital data revolution which is happening. Now, healthcare spending, both global and regional, if you look at the trends, in 24 months, every 24 months, the health data is going to double. Now, 39.7 million smartphone applications are already in use. 75% of patients expects to use the digital health services in future, 75%. And then 20 to 30 billion connected internet medical devices by 2020 end. So now, because of the lockdown, this may go to 2021 end. 150 exabytes of health data and 47 trillion worth of estimated global economic impact of chronic diseases by 2030. So there is every reason that we must target this sector. Now, if we talk about the components of technologies which are inducing this digital disruption in healthcare, now I would put them in three layers. It's technology, trends, and then leveraging that digital world. So in technologies, you have artificial intelligence, machine learning, neural networks, big data, IoT, IoE, then sensors, actuators, mobile technologies, cloud, then natural user interface, and then connectivity. And then you have number of trends: healthcare, wellness, integrated digital physical experience, learning, automation, analytics, social metrics. And that is going to solve new problems. It is going to improve the user experience, the patient experience. It is going to enhance the productivity, and there are going to be new business models which this entire economy is going to create. Now, in digital healthcare and health tech sectors, there are a number of verticals which are emerging. I am not going to go into details of these. Now, these verticals, if you Google even one, you will find a number of companies are already working in these areas. Now, what I'll do is I'll look at the healthcare and wellness technologies, which have come forward in 2020. Most of these technologies are being used today very effectively. Now, data sciences, that is using variables, variable data to monitor and prevent healthcare problems, improving diagnostic accuracy and efficiency, turning patients' care into precision medicine, advancing pharmaceutical search to find care, optimizing clinic performance through actionable data, taking the risks out of the prescription medicine, and reducing healthcare costs. Then there are chatbots, which can give you a number of answers without actually referring to the doctors. So with automated assistants stepping in. The work of the medical professional as far as very routine work is going to reduce. Then blockchain, it has the power to restructure the entire digital marketing system. Then telemedicine has again gained a lot of importance, and personalized digital mobile health applications. Now these are now gaining, as I showed in the previous slide, the number has really swollen. Now by 2025, we are going to see a very connected ecosystem of sensors and devices all around us. You talk about our body, so you have smart devices, you have implants, you have wearables, you have peripherals. You talk about our home, there is activity monitoring, digital assistance, home medical devices, and consultations, coaching. Then even at community level, you have automated kiosks, mobility, supply chain logistics, emergency response. In the clinical, at the clinic, you have handheld medical technology devices, care cooperation techniques, therapies, labs on the chip. And similarly, in bigger hospitals, you'll have connected equipment, and you have smart operations, patient surveillance, all of that. And there are a number of technologies which would be responsible for this, including analytics, storage, machine learning. And there are a number of other things which are going to be very, very important. That is cyber security is going to be one of the most important part of the entire game, and interoperability of various equipment. Now, if we look at the key tech trends, which are substantially impacting the healthcare, which are going to impact the healthcare. So in last 60 years, computing power has improved 1 trillion times last 60 years, since the time the computers were invented. Now we are shifting from social, mobile, analytics, and cloud to distributed ledger technology, artificial intelligence, extended reality, and quantum computing. We call it a shift from SMAC to dark. And then personal profiling of the patients by analyzing their entire life cycle, including their social life, their personal life, their health records, financials, job profiles, and that will change how the healthcare is actually provided. I'm talking about the holistic healthcare. And the health business will require reskilling of the next gen workforce, which has to be trained quickly. Augmented reality, virtual reality, Internet of Things, sensors, artificial intelligence, blockchain. Now, all these are going to be extremely important. Then there are products like IBM Watson, which can read 40 million documents in 15 seconds and then analyze them. Now, all this will get the consultations in the medical world very, very competitive, very good, very accurate. 3D printing of bionic parts. Now you can print each part precisely. The small child you see in the slide, he has a 3D printed hand. So for replacing his amputated hand. Similarly, telemedicine combined with AR, that is going to create wonders. And again, automation in healthcare business, it will ride 3 waves, we call it: algorithmic, augmentation, and autonomy. So most of the things are going to be algorithmic and autonomous. And then implying that automated stores, they lose all human workforce in stages across 2020. Now, 5G is another technology which is going to increase the capacity gains by 1,000-folds. And next few years, at least 100 billion devices are going to be connected at 10 gigabits per second. Now, that means the telemedicines or the virtual reality is going to be very effective. And then data privacy regulations are again a very, very important factor, which we cannot ignore. And all health businesses will need to adopt data privacy regulations and the cybersecurity measures. Now, there are some of the health-related technologies which are maturing, and which are maturing by 2025, 2030. Now, these are by 2025. Now, brain computing services by, say, 2030, 2035. Now, that is the time frame. 3D bioprinting, nanorobotics, 3D printed drugs, then advanced materials. Similarly, robotic care, wellness gamification, augmentation reality. Now, all these are, either they have already started or they are happening now, or they're in development stage. Wearable sensors, then population health analysis, then medical tricolor, digital avatars, 3D printed medical devices. So that is already in the market. Enhancement prosthetics, surveillance tools, artificial intelligence, precision medicines, embedded sensors, bioprinted sensors, quantum computing, and regenerative medicines. Now, these are going to happen in the time frame 2020 and 2030, 2035. So next 10 years are going to be very, very exciting for the medical world, for the innovation world. So Dr. Anil Wali was talking about number of companies which are now into healthcare and which are providing digital health in some or the other way. They are in one of these technologies. So a large number of companies are already working towards it. And this is the time when India grabs this opportunity. And let me share my concern that there are a very small number of Indian companies who are into this innovation space. There are companies, but number is pretty small, and the market size is very big. And for providing affordable health to all our citizens, we need to have those innovations systems in place, innovation environments in place, entrepreneurship environment in place for health tech. 150 digital health companies. Now, these are the startups in different areas. These are 12 main areas. Now, this is CB Insights Report 2019. Now, this was before the pandemic struck. So you can see a very large number of companies. And some of these companies are from Israel, being a very, very small country, but going in for the largest number of startups in AI and in AI healthcare as well. Purely, if you look at the AI startups, there are 90 plus startups which are to watch. And we have to be one of these. We have to be one of the leading players in these startups. So that is the basic aim of CIBioD. Thank you so much. I thank CIBioD team, and I thank all the panelists. Now we are going to hear Dr. Sarit K. Das. I'm very excited to hear him. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Khalsi, for your. Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Khalsi. May I now request Dr. Varinder Garg as the presiding speaker to give his presiding remarks. Dr. Varinder Garg, can you please unmute?
Thank you. I'm thankful to Dr. Nirmaljeet Singh Khalsi ji and Dr. Anil Valli. After their elaborative, detailed presentation upon entire ecosystem of innovation and deep insight into the healthcare innovation and entrepreneurship, I don't think there is much scope left to add something to it when we had another esteemed IITian, Director IIT Ropar, Dr. Sarit Kumar Das, on the panel along with us. So today, we are extremely lucky to have a very enlightened panel, all from IITs. So we hope that this session will introduce the concept of innovation and the telehealth among all the audience and our team members better than we expected. So now I will invite Dr. Harish to further announce the award. Dr. Harish.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Saab. Next slide. Award slide. So CIBioD has constituted a jury who recommended Professor Sarit Kumar Das as CIBioD Best Innovation Leadership Award. Now I request Dr. Raja Ramchandran to introduce Dr. Sarit Das to the audience and to the panelists. Dr. Raja Ramchandran, please.
Thank you, Harishji. Good morning, everybody. It is a pleasure indeed to introduce Professor Sarit Kumar Das, who is the Director IIT Ropar for today's conference. Professor Das is an eminent personality in the field of mechanical engineering. He has published over 250 research papers and textbook articles. He is also a recipient of Dard and Alexander von Humboldt Fellowship and Fellow of INAE and National Academy of Sciences, which is a great honor. He was also awarded Peabody Visiting Professorship at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, USA. His research interests include heat transfer in nanofluids, microfluidics, biological, nanoparticle mediated drug delivery in cancer cells, and computational fluid dynamics. So, sir, it's all yours, and it's a pleasure to hear to you. Thank you. So you need to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You should have friends everywhere who speaks great about you, so that you start feeling you are really that good. So the thing is that first I thought of making a presentation, but then I decided to speak directly from my heart, because what is the topic for this particular conference, and I would congratulate Dr. Varinder Garg to bring out such a topic, which I think is spoken everywhere, but very little understood, which is Atmanirbhar Bharat. A couple of weeks back, I was hearing a very stupid debate in one of the news channels, which says that, by putting Atmanirbhar Bharat, are we closing down our interaction with the world? There can be nothing more stupid than this perception. So I want to explain the perspective of Atmanirbhar Bharat and what the institutions like CIBioD and IIT Ropar can do in this respect. Now, you see, what is Atmanirbhar Bharat? Atmanirbhar Bharat essentially means that we need to be self-sufficient. Now, in this interconnected world, nobody can be 100% self-sufficient. You must have exchanges between nations, between organizations, between institutions, and so on. But if you don't have anything to offer, who is going to make exchanges with you? So, for the last 30, 40 years, what we are seeing is we are trying to go to the world. But the question the world is asking, what have you got to offer us? Now, this is what is important. If you don't have anything to offer, I'm sorry to use the word, you become beggar. Either beggar or buyer. Now, the people who only buys are nations like the Middle East nations, who have got enough money from their oil, who keeps on buying everything, even a seat in the spacecraft, they buy. They send their, one of the Saudi, princes, he went to space by paying money. Now, this is what is not our way. So, if we take that example itself, the example of space, India went the other way, not buying the space in the rocket, but developing their own rocket. Now, what I'm trying to say, that Atmanirbhar means that others will be forced to collaborate with you because you have got certain things to offer to the world. And hence, it essentially means develop capability. Develop capability by research, by entrepreneurship, by producing, by bringing our ideas to the market, by marketing those ideas. This is how you must create the things which are deliverable by us to the world. And by that way, the world will recognize us and would like to collaborate with us. It is not, collaborations never happens by good wishes. The collaborations do happen because of necessity. If the people in the world, if the United States, United Kingdom, whole of Europe, Southeast Asia, they feel that this is a country which is producing something which you don't have, they will come and collaborate with you. They will offer their technology. So Atmanirbhar Bharat is the first step towards that. Create your own capability so that on one hand, you can take care of your own population. On the other hand, you force the whole of the world to collaborate with you. You force them by the strength of your innovation. Now, this is what was very well delineated by two things. One, the direction, and the second, the priorities. This has happened in the last couple of weeks. If you look at the two speeches that I heard, one was from our Honorable Prime Minister. And you know what the Indian Prime Minister said, nobody in the world said. And that is regarding vaccine. And that set the tone how this Atmanirbhar or our innovation is going to be guided. You see, the American president told about American first. Whatever vaccine comes, American vaccine should be given to Americans only. The British Prime Minister talked about they are looking at various things. The Vladimir Putin said that, their vaccine is better than anybody else. And so they would like to market it. Now, all this is going within the domains of either politics or economics. Whereas the Indian Prime Minister said, our decision regarding the choice of vaccine and regarding the application of vaccine, even prioritizing is going to be driven by scientific advice. No world leader has said that. So, you see, this is where we must take pride in the approach that our country has taken. We are thinking of applying vaccine, bringing vaccine based on scientific evidence, guided by the scientific advice. The second thing that I have seen in the couple of weeks was a long lecture or long interview by Dr. Harshvardhan. And when I listened to him, I found I don't think anybody, not to speak of politicians, even the experts, have got the clarity with which he told about how we are going to choose vaccine, how we are going to set up the supply chain for vaccine, preserve the vaccine, prioritize it, deliver it, and what is a realistic time for covering our prioritized population. Only a scientist, a person with scientific mind can do that. And we are really lucky as a nation that such a person is at the helm of health affairs of this country. What I'm trying to say that when we are talking of innovation, when we are talking of healthcare, and not only healthcare, being Atmanirbhar in any strata, any section of scientific innovation, if you are guided by such kind of a scientific vision and a scientific planning, we are bound to succeed. So these are the positive points which is from the top. But then we do have responsibility. We cannot just wait and look at the top and think that government will do that, government will take policy, and so things will run. We do have our own responsibility. And this is where I think I am really humbled that this innovation award for the leadership in innovation is given to me. But as you know, a team is as good, a leader is as good as his team. Because it is given to me for leadership, actually, this innovation has been done by the team IIT Ropar. And I will tell few words about this, how this came out. Probably this will help us to take future steps. See, when the lockdown occurred in March, within a couple of days of the lockdown, I found IIT Ropar faculty members formed certain WhatsApp groups. And discussion was going on in those WhatsApp groups because we very clearly delineated the mission of IIT Ropar, which is contribution to knowledge, contribution to society, and contribution to the nation. And our faculty members were talking, what can we do in these hours of crisis? They themselves, I was in few of those groups and I didn't make a single comment. They themselves were commenting, and they've identified some 20-25 problems and started, working on that. Now, as a director, what I thought, the next thing will be all of them will be writing to me to give some money so that they can complete this work. But to my surprise, what I found, nobody asked for money from me. They said, sir, we have equipment. We have got our project, money from our project, money from our consultancy. It doesn't matter. We don't want any money. Sir, can you help us in getting curfew pass so that I can go to Chandigarh, I can go to Delhi and buy the components and bring them and make the devices that I am thinking about? I was overwhelmed. And these are very young people. Please understand, one of my faculty members, for having a negative pressure ambulance, he traveled, keeping his family here. He traveled to Delhi, to Noida, in the worst of the time of COVID. When there was peak, he traveled there. He worked with that company to make that ambulance possible. And he came back, was quarantined for 14 days. He took all these risks and these hazards to make something and to market it with the help of that industry. What I'm trying to say is that the spirit that I have seen in these people is much more important than the money we invest or the programs that we do. This is what will make this country, great. The correct policy comes from the top, and we have seen glimpses of that from the Prime Minister, from the Health Minister, from everyone. But the question is how institute like ours, see, IIT Ropar or PGI or these institutions have been government, declared by government as institutes of national importance. What does it mean? It's not just a writing. It's not just to extract more money from the government for the institution. If these are institutes of national importance at the time of national crisis, it has got its share of responsibility as well. And that is what I could see. IIT Ropar people, they brought out things like UV sanitizer. What they brought out is, first it was taken by government of Haryana, police department, then government of Punjab. And now, even I find out that in IPL in Dubai, all the players' rooms were sanitized by a specially designed UV sanitizer, which was designed at IIT Ropar. The other thing that came out was something called Medi Sarathi, which is a combination of drones and robots, which was developed by IIT Ropar and PGI Chandigarh by the joint collaboration. And this is in the process of patenting, and we are going to use it in future. We found out a way to save doping and also what is called a negative pressure ambulance. An ambulance where not only COVID patients can be carried, even during carrying, tests can be done, and all these have been developed by IIT Ropar. Now, as Professor Bali was saying, that similarly in IIT Delhi also, there were certain things done. I know in IIT Kanpur, IIT Madras, I know things were done. What we were seeing is actually a demonstration of the potential that we have got. Now, COVID is a wake-up call. COVID is not just a wake-up call, it is also an indicator. Quite often, it's like diamonds are there around us, but we are seeing that as pieces of coal because, diamonds remain only in coal mines and they remain covered with coal. And so they look black, they are there around us. It's the responsibility of people like us to uncover that, cut and bring it to the dazzle which shines all over the world. So this is what is the task of institutions like IITs, ICERs, PGI, and how to do it? This is one thing which has been bugging me, not for years, even for decades. And this is it. When I was a professor at MIT, a chair professor, I was looking at them that what is there which makes MIT an MIT? And that time I was a professor of IIT Madras. I asked the question, why IIT Madras is not becoming MIT. Now, when I looked at the quality of students, I found nothing great. In fact, the undergraduate students of IIT Madras were much better than MIT. Postgraduate students are comparable, and even the faculty members at the entry point, they were similar. In terms of their brilliance, in terms of their publications, in terms of their ideas, they were similar. The next thing people say about equipment. Today, in Indian institutions, we have reasonably good equipment. May not be level of MIT, but at least just next to that. So even that is not the problem. It is neither the people, the human resources, nor the physical resources. Only one I could identify which is the difference, which is ambience. See, at MIT, when people meet, they talk about research. They talk about new things. We meet, we talk about increment. We talk about what government is doing wrong. We talk about the traffic in Chandigarh city. We need to change that. See, it is only the ambience which is differing, nothing else. Quality of manpower, quality of equipment, direction from the government. In fact, people do not know. People tell that, United States spend so much in research, which is not true. In United States, you ask any professor, the rate of success for a project is 1 in 15. If they write 15 projects, they get one of them. In India, if you write a sensible project, 1 in 5 gets, funded by some agency, whether it is ICMR or CSIR or, DST or DBT or, DRDO or so on. So money is not problem. Quality of human being is not problem. The problem is creating the right kind of ambience in our institutions. And what is that right kind of ambience? See, every institute has got their own primary, tasks. Like in PGI, I see the doctors are very busy treating patients. Of course, they have to treat patients. In IIT Ropar, I found out that, faculty members are very busy teaching the students. Of course, they have to teach students. They have to bring out the best of the students. But that can only be a part of their responsibility, maybe 30, 40, 50, even 60%. We must give them the space for innovation of the rest of the time. And this is what is very, very important. To do that, the most important thing that we can do is to connect them. You see, we are talking of MIT. Very interesting. MIT, like many US universities, MIT doesn't have a medical school. Harvard has got a medical school. MIT has got its biology department and biological engineering department separately. What they do, they collaborate with Harvard Medical School for clinical studies and so on. And they have formed certain centers, which is more like, CIBioD Center. They call Broad Institute, Koch Institute. Broad Institute works on genomics. Koch Institute works on cancer. These are the centers which is jointly funded and resourced by MIT and Harvard together. And they become world beaters. Now, we at Chandigarh has got infinite possibility. We have ISAR, NIPAR, PGI, IIT Ropar, n number of institutions. If centers like these focus on that, see, for example, CIBioD is looking at medical equipment. Similarly, there are other institutions also which are looking at something different. So, say, with NIPAR, therapeutics, we can try to develop. If we can have these centers which fuel this innovation, and we, the administrators of these organizations, are serious about them. We have started working with CIBioD, but we would like that it's not just one project, two projects, a series of projects with such combined effect we can do. What will happen? What it will change? It will change the ambience. And we will become world beaters. We will develop world-class products. And the moment we will have products, processes, methods to offer to the world will also start coming to us. And that is what is the real meaning of being Atmanirbhar. The activity has started. I think this particular conference is a great one in that direction, but this should be only the triggering point. With the help of this, if we can start these activities, create this kind of ambience, then what we can do is we can create a new India, which will be looking at the world for collaboration, contributing to humanity, but at the same time, taking care of the 1.3 billion people who are looking towards us for a new India. Thank you very much. Jai Hind, Bharat Mata ki Jai.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sarit. It was such an esteemed pleasure to have you speak such inspiring and energetic words, showing us the dimensions of intersection of medical institutions, engineering institutions, and policy framework. And this esteemed panel today has brought all of us together, with Dr. Khalsi here from the public administration, to you from the engineering and PGIMR, almost like a framework of the Cambridge community of Harvard, MIT, and the policy schools of Fletcher altogether. In fact, it was such a pleasure to see you here and meet you in person, because my own company, which is has signed an MOU with IIT Ropar about 2 years back, specializing in RFID technologies, implementing in specific healthcare and defense sectors, and we're still working very greatly with IIT Ropar on that. And all this was very unforeseen about 5 years back. So thank you, Dr. Sarit, for introducing this culture and this environment, as you rightly said, bringing this ambiance in this part of the country, and not only showing us this path forward, but also decisively taking it to completely and truly making India Atmanirbhar through new and disruptive technologies and innovations. Thank you everyone for being here and sharing with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.